Hey everyone, what's going on? If you've been slicing and deflecting your way through Nine Souls and wondering why your game just pulled a chunky update, I've got you covered. The latest patch landed on November 4th, 2025, and it's a meaningful one, not just a quick bug squash. I'm going to walk you through what changed, why it matters, what you should do before you boot back into your save, and a few tips so your experience stays silky smooth. We'll talk performance, stability, mod compatibility, and some quality of life fixes you might notice the second you load in. This is going to be the kind of breakdown you can listen to while you're making dinner or cleaning up your desk. So by the end, you'll know exactly whether to jump right away or pause for a quick setup. And yes, I'll keep it plain language and actionable. First up, the headline change: the game's engine got a serious upgrade. Nine Souls has moved from Unity 2022.3.33 F1 to Unity 2022.362 F2. That might sound like an alphabet soup of numbers, but here's the meaning behind it. Engine upgrades like this are the foundation for how the game runs on your machine. Think of it as swapping out the chassis under a car while keeping the same gorgeous bodywork and combat feel. The big reason for this jump isn't just shiny new toys for the devs. It addresses a Unity security vulnerability identified earlier this year. In normal speak, that's a hole that could potentially be exploited. Patching it helps keep the game and your system safer while also improving overall stability. So if you're the type who worries about whether you should update right away, this is one of those cases where updating is the smart move because it closes a known issue and tightens up the base tech Nine Souls rides on. Now, when a game's engine jumps forward this far, there's a ripple effect across everything else, especially if you mod. The devs have put a clear note in the patch details. Some community-made mods that were built and tested on the older engine might not behave the same way anymore. That doesn't mean every mod breaks, but compatibility is not guaranteed. If you've got a carefully curated loadout of tweaks, shaders, or gameplay adjustments, you'll want to do a quick audit before you mash that continue button. There's even an official branch switching guide linked right in the notes for folks who want to stay on the previous stable build for mod reasons. I won't read out the credentials here on the video because they could change, but you'll find them in the posted notes if you need them. The takeaway is simple. The developers anticipated the mod situation and gave you a path to hold your current setup if you're mid-run or rely on a particular mod that hasn't updated yet. Let's talk about what you'll feel in moment-to-moment play, because this patch isn't only about security. There's a whole stack of minor fixes and improvements that clean up little paper cuts, visual hiccups, audio behaviors, and edge case interactions that can chip away at immersion. If you noticed weird flickers as objects came onto the screen from off-screen, there's a fix for that. If some traditional Chinese dialogue didn't render correctly for you or your friends, that's been corrected. There was also a specific texture layer alignment issue on the container rail in the central transport hub. The kind of tiny visual glitch that you only notice once, but then it lives rent-free in your brain during every subsequent visit. That alignment issue has been addressed. These are the sorts of changes you may not list off by heart later, but your eyes and ears will thank you while you're navigating and fighting. If you're big on continuity and you hop in and out of boss arenas, there's a specific quality fix you'll appreciate. Boss music now restarts correctly if you re-enter combat after leaving. It's a small thing, but boss fights in Nine Souls have that dramatic weight, and the music is part of the adrenaline rush. Having it behave consistently keeps the tone where it should be. There are also patches for visual cracks past the map boundary, so you're less likely to catch that jarring look behind the scenes. And if you've ever had the misfortune of your dropped items landing inside a fire trap emitter, yep, that got a fix too. The patch includes steady work on enemy behavior, squashing cases where enemies could teleport into walls or where respawn points could pop you a little too close to hazard zones, causing chain damage that felt unfair. These are practical, player-first fixes that smooth out rough edges without touching the heart of the combat system. There's also a quest flow fix that's worth calling out, especially for completionists and folks working through post-game cleanup. Previously, there was a progression bug that let you advance to the next chapter before finishing Shenong's final drink, and that could leave your max HP lower than intended. That's the sort of thing you might not catch until you're deep into a run and feeling squishier than you should be. The patch tightens that up, which is great for new players and a quiet relief for anyone restarting. Another little visual tweak I love is the removal of that brief white line artifact before talisman explosions. It was tiny, but if you notice visual artifacts, they really break the illusion during flashy moments. This patch continues the devs' trend of polishing the game's presentation to match its art direction. For those wondering about platform coverage, the updated files are associated with both Windows and macOS depots. Translation: the maintenance isn't limited to one platform. If you're running on macOS, especially on Apple Silicon, this is a good moment to recheck your settings and If you've been using any compatibility layers or controller drivers, confirm they still play nicely with the new engine runtime. On Windows, keep an eye on overlays since updated Unity versions sometimes change how tools like MSI Afterburner or certain RGB managers hook into the game. If anything feels off, verify your game files and try a quick relaunch before assuming something bigger is wrong. Let's pause for some easy housekeeping that can save you headaches. Before you launch after a major engine update, back up your save. 9 Souls saves are small, and an extra copy on your desktop or cloud drive is cheap insurance. After the update finishes, run a file integrity check through your platform's launcher. That ensures you aren't carrying over any corrupted or outdated asset bundles from the previous engine version. If you're running mods, disable everything on the first boot, get into the game clean, load into a safe area, and do a quick lap to feel out performance and input response. Then re-enable your mods one by one. It's tempting to flip them all back on at once, but that's the fastest way to turn troubleshooting into a guessing game. If you use a shader injector or a post-process suite, test without it first. Many of those hook deeply into Unity's render pipeline, and even the tiniest engine differences can change their behavior. If you use a controller with custom software, make sure it's up to date. Sometimes controller layers need a nudge after an engine surges forward. Performance-wise, what should you expect? Engine updates like this aren't magic FPS buttons, but you often get indirect wins. Better thread scheduling in certain scenes, fewer micro-stutters when new assets stream in, and more predictable frame pacing during heavy effects. If you're CPU limited in crowded hubs, don't be surprised if frame times feel steadier. If you're already GPU bound because you're playing at a high resolution with fancy upscaling, the difference might be subtler, more about consistency than raw numbers. The other silent win is crash reduction. Stability improvements that come with LTS engine updates tend to cut down on those rare but annoying hiccups that force you back to desktop, especially when you're tabbing between the game and other apps. Let's circle back to mods for a second, because that's where most longtime players live. If your favorite mod has an active maintainer, check their page for any note about the new engine version. Sometimes modders push a quick compatibility update within hours. Other times they need to recompile, adjust a method signature that's changed in Unity's API, or swap dependency versions for their frameworks. If your mod relies on reflection or hooks tied to specific memory addresses, it's more likely to need a refresh. It's also worth keeping a compatibility mode profile in your mod manager, where you only enable the absolute essentials. That lets you hop back into the story without abandoning mods entirely, while the rest of your stack catches up. And if you truly need to stick to your current setup for a longer run, use that branch switch guide the devs provided to park yourself on the prior stable build. It's a considerate touch from Red Candle Games, and it shows they're aware of how important mod ecosystems are for longevity. Another quick win from this patch is the set of polish notes around movement and traversal. There were issues with certain climbable moving walls that could get stuck or act strangely after repeated interactions. Those have been addressed. Anyone who loves squeezing every bit of momentum out of the level geometry will feel the difference right away, because those micro interactions determine whether a route feels crisp or mushy. Also, respawn adjustments that prevent you from reappearing too close to hazards mean fewer cheap hits as you're trying to recover. It's not changing the challenge so much as removing frustrating edge cases that were never meant to be part of the difficulty.